Welcome back again, as always, Rocky Road family. We are here in person together, so if you're watching on YouTube, hey, how's it going? We're in person today, which is super fun, and get to hang out together, which we don't get to do as often as we'd like to. But today, our podcast, we are going to talk about how to build a community and the important pieces to a community, and then also why it's important to have a community around you. So, did you want to say something?
Sure. Well, because I think we might have already lost people saying how to build a community. People might say, I already have one, or I don't need one. I'm a lone wolf, or the one I have is working for me just fine. And that's great. There's always ways to improve every single thing that we're doing.
Yes.
And in life, things happen. Positive things happen that you want to celebrate with other people, and negative things happen that you might need support for. We don't know what those things are going to be until they happen. And the importance of building something is just like building a house. You're not just going to say, oh, it's raining today, I should build myself a hut. Like, no, you're going to build yourself some shelter so that you can withstand whatever is coming your way.
Right. Yeah. And also, I think the way that we have things laid out as far as how to build a community is different than what people would normally think. Because most people, I would say, rely on a close friend group. Maybe you play the same video game. Maybe you are in a small group together. Maybe you have a college friend group or something. But I think there's other elements to a community that need to happen instead of just having people that are like-minded, exactly like you around you.
Yes.
So our elements and ideas, I think, are different than what people would normally think as what a community would involve. So part of the reason you would want to build a community is, one, we are human beings, and everything has always been done in communities. People lived in villages way back in the day. People live in tribes. People live together in communities, like literal developments, things like that. We're not meant to be isolated. People may enjoy that and may like to be alone, but I don't think as a healthy, whole human, being completely alone with no community is really the right thing to do, honestly. So, and that's my opinion, I guess. But to prevent certain things from when things go awry, then you have different things in place. Because I know you can talk from experience. From me, multiple times throughout my life, my community has only been people on the same level as me. And then when something happens and you lose them all. And then there's nothing. It's gone. So that happened to me in high school. That happened to me in college. That happened to me recently, where it's like your whole community is just ripped out from under you. And if you don't have other elements to a community, you are completely isolated. And that's a very vulnerable and kind of dangerous place to be, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about from either a physical safety or an emotional safety perspective too, you're right. If your whole community comes from one specific group of people, whether it be those convenience friendships that we've talked about before, if it's all about, okay, we're on this specific team together, and then you move to another state and you're not playing in that sports team, and then all of a sudden, yes, you might be able to build a new community with whatever that hobby is in that new place, but it's not going to be as strong. And what if something happens immediately, whether it's to celebrate or to mourn or grieve? Either way, having something exciting happen in a brand new place is actually a really sad place to be, because you're excited and you're celebrating, but there's no one to really physically enjoy that with you and relish in that with you. And so, I've actually gotten feedback from, I'm dropping this bomb on Mandy. I got some feedback from someone recently that says like, oh, I feel like you guys talk only about the negative things. Well, we're not talking about the negative things. We're talking about how to prepare ourselves to enjoy life more fully and to be able to be bigger, and not physically bigger, but emotionally larger and just more fulfilled humans. And so I'm going to come at this conversation with that lens, saying, community is, yes, really important to support us when we're down, but also to be able to support another person within a community and to just build stronger bonds with people.
Sure.
And just the celebration factor is just so huge for me too.
Yeah, because if you're doing something, you want people to support you and back you, whether that's a new job or a new hobby or a new something you're trying to get better at, or
and challenge you.
And challenge. You want people to push you and to be there so that if you do fall, they're there to support you, but also encourage you along the way. So absolutely makes sense to me. I would say, so one of the things that I have learned over the years as far as something that's really important in having a community is having a mentor or somebody older than you. So if you go generationally, I really do believe it's important to have people that you are mentoring underneath you, but that you also have people mentoring you above you. And you have this bridged gap of generations. Now there are differences. Obviously, people that are in their teens right now are different than us in our 30s, and us in our 30s are different than people in their 60s and 70s and 80s. It's very different. So there are certain things you can take, but I think there's so many nuggets of wisdom that can be helpful. So having somebody and working on that, whether that's signing up for an actual mentorship program, or having a boss or a coworker maybe that's been doing what you're doing for 20 years, that's there that you can talk to, that is kind of in a way like a little outwardly from your normal day-to-day community. So you have your friends, you have your closest friends, your best friends, everybody, and most of the time they look like you, they talk like you, they act like you, they have similar interests. Somebody who's like a mentor sits above that in a way. I almost kind of think of it as like this circle, and the mentors are like on the edge of the circle. They're reachable and they're attainable, but they're not in your every single day life, but they're there to guide you and to lead you and to help you because they have been through things in their life and they have wisdom and they have learned things. Do they know everything? No. But can it be helpful to have that? Yes. And so I think for me in my life, anybody that has served as a mentor has really impacted my life. I wouldn't say that I've had a ton of impact moments in my life with just normal day-to-day people. You have a lot of fun memories and a lot of things you do, but as far as really growing you as a person, a mentor serves as a completely different person and a different role in your life as opposed to your normal friends.
And to have a mentor and to seek out a mentor, you also have to be ready for a mentor.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people who don't ever get to the point where they can seek and accept feedback from a mentor because they are not in a place that constructive support or criticism or even idea sharing is applicable to where they're at in life. And I think it goes full circle to in my opinion, I will die on this hill. One thing that would make the whole world a better place is if everybody had a little better self-awareness. Yes. And being able to have the awareness that I could use the wisdom of other people. That doesn't mean that you have to accept the wisdom, I have air quotes here, from everybody, because some people give unsolicited advice. That's not necessarily mentorship. There's a very specific relationship when someone is a mentor or even a supervisor. Like if you have had the privilege of having a really good supervisor in your life, it can be altering to the entire experience of your workplace or we were talking about work and mentorship, but mentorship can also be spiritual. Mentorship can be in mom groups and things like that. And being able to latch onto an experience that someone else has had and humbling yourself and saying, hi, I don't know everything. I want to know more. Yeah. And I need to feed off of your wisdom.
Most importantly is having a mentor, but also not losing yourself. So having a mentor is somebody who influences you, but that you don't want to be exactly like that person because then you don't know who you are. So if you have, let's use mom groups as an example, completely can understand that. You meet a mom who cooks all organic food, cuts out shapes in the sandwiches of their kids, has a perfectly clean house, all their kids pay attention. They have pets and this whole, it looks like a picture perfect family, and you want to be like that. And I have been guilty of that, where I wanted to be so much like that, and then you end up losing yourself. You get frustrated because that's not who you are for whatever reason. Not saying I'm a slob, but that you just try so hard to be like somebody that you don't know who you are. So a healthy mentor would be encouraging you and trying to help you. We can probably do a whole podcast on mentorship, honestly. But a mentor would be helping you, guiding you, leading you, but also seeing who you are and pulling out your assets that are good as a person and what you are good at and helping to guide you. So mentors that I've had in my life, I don't do the same job they do. For me, I didn't have like a work mentor, which is fine. And so they have their own job, I have my own job, but we supported each other and said, this is great. You're really good at this and you're really good at this, and encourage each other. And it's very life-giving on both ends as the mentor and the mentee. So same thing with even just going downward and younger for us being in our 30s, mentoring would be young 20s, maybe some teenagers, mid 20s, maybe, and kind of leading and guiding people. And you can do that by not having the exact same interests, but by seeing the gifts that somebody has and encouraging them in that.
And this can feed right into the topic of how to choose your closest circle. Because like you say, if your closest circle is everyone who looks like you, talks like you, walks like you, does the exact same things you are, you're not challenging each other and you're not really helping each other grow. There are some people in my closest circle who they are the exact opposite of me personality wise, and we balance each other in such a wild way that it's so essential. But there's also a mutual respect to that. So I'm going to jump to the Enneagram again because I love it and I'm a nerd, but I'm a 2. I've recently just settled into, I am a 2 wing 3, hard 3. I get it. One of my closest friends is a hard 8. And we go to each other's negative when we're stressed. And that's how I think we understand each other in such a way that I go to her with specific questions because I know she will give me no BS. She will not necessarily be disrespectful, but she will be direct. And that's what I need sometimes. Yeah. And then she comes to me when she needs validation. And there's that give and take. Whereas if I surrounded myself with a bunch of 2 wing 3s, we would have a great time, but when we're all feeling healthy anyway, but we wouldn't necessarily stretch and challenge each other in ways that are necessary for the human experience to succeed.
Yeah. And even on that same note, I would say you have people that are different than you that can help to challenge you. And then there's so many, you can find people that are in different nooks of your life and then they can be different and having those differences. But okay, so I know who you're talking about with your 8 friend. That's not me. And I think
you are not an 8.
Really not an 8 at all. But I think a very important part is to not feel, for me, to have that self-awareness, to know that I don't need to be that 8 friend to try to win you over. Like I'm very content in the friend pocket that I am in with you, that I don't want to be the 8. So when you need something and you go to the 8, I don't want to get jealous or be like, why didn't you talk to me about that? Why didn't you tell me? That's not healthy either, because it's like you are in your pocket where you are in someone's life for a purpose, and we all are different and can help each other that way. So I have friends from college, I have friends from current times, I have friends from elementary school, and I've got friends that I haven't made yet. And that's okay, because they're all in your life to build this community that can be different, that you know who you need to go to for certain things. You're not relying on one person. But you're also not leaving people out. You're seeing the positive in that person and utilizing them for the gifts that they have. Needing to ask a question and getting a fair answer? Probably not me, because I'm going to be very cushiony and be like, oh, it's great. Do what you want. And like, I love you and it's great. But like, if you need an actual answer from somebody, pick the friend that can give that to you. I can do that in certain cases. But I'm also very much like, I'm glad you have that friend. I don't need to be that person.
Total caveat too. Like there were specific questions that I asked this person, and she will laugh. I sent her like a picture of a cake or like something that I wanted, and then she just answers no. Like just no. Like, okay, you're right.
Flat out no. Right. Should I buy this? I'm like, yeah, do what you want. And she's like, no, so why would you do that?
She wasn't even asked. She's no, I refuse. I'm like, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah. No, but that goes back to self-awareness too. With being, I like how you say that little pocket of friendship, right? Let's say we're like the most amazing female cargo pants, right? It's like we're taking our little toolkits, because I'm not gonna wear a tool belt, but like fancy 90s parachute cargo pants, right?
Sure, with the zip offs.
Oh, for sure. Because sometimes it gets a little steamy. So being able to pull from different pockets and being able to say, like, this is my Mandy satchel. You're not a pocket. You're a freaking fanny pack. So being able to pull from different areas and say, I need this today and I need this today. And sometimes what's in those different areas can intermingle in a really cool way. Yeah. I'm at a point where I think it's really cool how in our 30s we can say, oh, I've known my college friends. Like, I speak to maybe one person from high school. It just wasn't a great time for me.
Sure. But
I've known my college friends for so long, and I can say, wow, we have like over a decade of experience together.
Yeah.
And then there are also people who we might have just met and realizing that you are still a relatively new friend, but that's years now. And so being able to say, you have value in, it doesn't necessarily matter the longevity of the friendship. You can meet certain people and know, oh, you're in my corner for sure.
Yeah.
And then there are some people that you know are just for a little while. And I think people's values in your life will increase and decrease depending on what you and they are going through. That doesn't decrease the quality of the relationship, but there are some points in life that I'm really going to need something from one person, and there's some points in life where they're really going to need things from me, and there are some points in life where we're going to be over here.
Yeah. And being okay with that and circling back to, okay, maybe I haven't talked to you in, you know, you have some friends that you talk to every day, twice a week, 3 times a week. You have some friends that you talk to every 6 months. But when you talk to them every 6 months, it's just like you were just talking to them yesterday, and it feels that way, and it's mutually understood that that's okay to do that. And you can have that. So you were using the cargo pants analogy. I was thinking of a flower. So it's like the center of a flower, you're in the middle, and then you have all these little petals around it. And some of them, sometimes petals cross. Like if I'm with you and all of your friends, there's some that I won't get along with really, or that I gravitate more towards than others, but they're from different seasons of your life. You've got your whole variety. And it's like, I want to be Mandy in your life. I want to be Mandy, your friend Mandy. I don't want to be your other friends and be like, pick me, you know, I want to be just who I can be to you. But I think that the essence of a good friend comes from seeing the good things in that person and pulling them out and helping to encourage them in the ways that they're good. So for me, I can see things in you that are good that maybe your 8 friend can't. And not saying she's not capable, but it's like, you just see different elements to it because of your personality, because of the way that we're wired, and because of our seasons of life, where we're at, our own experiences. They can help do that. So good friends enhance who you are as a person. And I think it's good to have that variety, to have those pieces. I have my college friends too. It's 10 years that I've known them. And I'm like, wow, I've known you for a really long time. You've been through a lot with me. And they're there. And maybe you don't talk to them every single day, but they have that history. They have that longevity. They have the consistent presence and support and encouragement and excitement for you when good things happen, when struggles happen. You've built that relationship strong enough to know that they're there for you in those times. And start, you know, pulling that around too is you can build a friendship and you can build your communities quickly or over time. There's multiple ways to do it. You can click with somebody instantly and get along and be great friends right away and have a great long 20, 30 years of friendship. You can be like us, who took time to figure out, like, this is kind of weird. And then recently being introduced to one of your friends where I'm like, I think I could be friends with her, but it's going to take time because I'm like, she's very different than me. Like, so it's like trying to figure it out, but then having the people that, you know, you can overlap and you can build them, but you can become friends, and it might be seasons, like a season of college. Maybe you're done with that sports team. You're not playing past college. So that's over. So you don't really see those friends, but you have maybe 1 or 2 from each season that you take with you, and they walk into the next season of your life with you.
And that doesn't help. It doesn't happen without mutual effort.
Yes.
And so if someone is in your community and they're in your community for this season and hopefully for future seasons, it's going to take mutual reciprocal understanding. And so there are some people who are, and I know you talked about the circle analogies. There are some people that are kind of outside of your intimate and more in your acquaintance circle, and they might have been in your inner circle, and then they might have moved out and they might move back in, and that's okay. They can still be part of your community. Even people that are on the periphery are important parts of your community.
Absolutely. So let's explain the circle analogy, because that's how I did use the flower analogy, but I really do use the circle analogy. So you have yourself in the middle, then you have a circle around you, then you have another circle around you, and then a third circle around you. So the closest circle, that's the closest to you. And sometimes there's actually, like, Phoenix is built this way. So there's like the 101, the 202, and the 303, which
that's cool.
are layered, which is interesting. But also same thing with, as Christians, Jesus has that where he has his inner circle, he has his next circle, and then the outer circle. So the closest circle to you are maybe 1 or 2 3 closest friends that you can call, that you can have the most intimate conversations with that person, detailed, whatever you need to talk about, any aspect of your life, and you feel safe and you feel appreciated and you feel secure in those closest friendships. Then you have your next circle out that has maybe 10 to 15 people in it on average, I would say, of like close friends that you would want to hang out with, you see regularly, but maybe you don't talk to them about your most personal things. But they're there and they're a good solid group. That could be a small group. That could be a group of coworkers or something where it's just a group of people that you're close with, you know them. And then your outer circle, the last circle, is your acquaintances, people that you see, maybe if you go to church, just people that you see on a Sunday that you're like, hey, how are you? They know you, you know them. They know, I have a child. I know that they moved from Washington State or whatever, but you don't really know them. Maybe you've never been to their house and they're just there. So having those different layers of this circle, target, I guess you could say, in a way, and then knowing where your friends sit in those places. And I think the self-awareness for yourself is to be content that you don't need to be best friends with every single person that you meet. And you don't also want to be acquaintances with every single person you meet. That's isolating. So having that awareness to have those balance. But like you were saying, sometimes a friend is in the inner circle for a season. Maybe you share a desk with somebody or something. It's like you're going to obviously get close to that person, but then you change your job and you go somewhere else. Maybe you don't really talk to them too much and they kind of bump out into the next layer, or you get to know somebody for you. You were an acquaintance for me for a little while and you've bumped your way into the circles as I've gotten to know you and built that relationship. So it looks different, and having the flexibility for things to ebb and flow gives you like that healthy community that's cycling and cyclical. You're not relying on one person. You're not relying on a group of 50 people. You kind of have what you need in the closest way. I'm
having flashbacks to I think it was our conversation with Eric, talking about like the mucous membrane versus the chain link fence. Sorry, mucus cell membrane.
Ew.
I'm so sorry, everybody. A cell membrane where it is gross. All right, we need a minute. A cell membrane, or you can things flow in and out. The nutrients go in, the waste goes out, like all this stuff. So things are very, very not amoebous, but they're very transient in the way where it's not a wall, it's not a fence, but it's a barrier that you can see, maybe feel, but things will flow in and out naturally.
Yeah. And I would say, going back to the beginning of our conversation, the mentor is not in that circle, in any layer of that circle. The mentor kind of stands out of that circle as a person that you go to, that you trust, that you pray with, that you listen to. You don't want to become, remember, like, you don't want to become another person. You want to be who you are. But your mentor really shouldn't be your closest friend. That's like not healthy either. But your mentor also shouldn't be somebody that you talk to once every 3 years. That's not a mentor either. So that kind of stands out. So the community building are these different layered circles, and then your mentor is aside from that.
Where would you place a therapist?
Even
outside further than mentor.
I think would put them together. You could have if you have the circles in here, these are I would say your friend circles. Then you have your helper, leader, guides, whatever that you want to call that.
Because then you could also put like a pastor or a certain thing, like in that kind of other exterior bubble.
Right. You can put, and then, so you would have that tiny side note. So I wouldn't cross them. Like, I wouldn't have your mentor be your therapist. And I wouldn't have your therapist be your mentor. I wouldn't have your pastor be your mentor, or your pastor be your therapist, or all of them like intermingling. I think it's better to have 3 separate, because roles change so quickly. You can switch to a different church. You can move to a different state. You can get a different job. You can do these things that change. And so having maybe 3 or 4 stationary older generation people in your life that you can call. Like, I have a friend one of my mom's friends, who she has told me my entire life, I've known her my entire life, and she has always told me if there's ever any situation that I can't call my mom, to call her. So I kind of have her like in my back pocket where she's there. I don't see her all the time, but she has told me that multiple times where I know she's there. So she's kind of like in that helper category of like, I know she's there. She's not going anywhere. And she is there if I need her. Pastors, mentors. And I've had multiple mentors, and mentors can shift. They don't need to stay the same for your whole life, following the same person. I've had a few different ones that have walked in my life at different seasons and helped in different ways. So that's kind of like its own piece of your community, but it's so important to have that, because if your circle friend group implodes for some reason, or if you implode and your friends like you get rid of them all, and your friends scatter, what are you going to do? This like solid, hefty helper circle, I like I'll use that term, is there, and they're not gonna move because they don't have those same connections as the friends. It's not in your closest circle,
as personal,
and
intimate, really,
right? So that's kind of the way I would build a community.
Gee, the importance of boundaries again.
Yes. And self-awareness, and also just like being okay with being not in everybody's closest and not farthest away. And that is a hard thing, because in our world, in this day and age, all we want to do is be accepted and be loved, and we want to be needed, and we want to be friends. People want friends. If you don't have a community, I guarantee there's a desire for it. And if there's not, there's probably something else going on. And it's so important. That's what everybody did. I always take myself, rewind 2,000 years. What would life look like without social media, without phones, without technology? What did life look like back then? You had your neighbor next door to get sugar from. You had the friend down the street. You had the barber. You had the seamstress. You had all these people that
2,000 years ago?
Yes.
There were barbers and seamstresses.
They didn't. Was the wheel even created back then? I don't even know.
I was like, geez Louise, you're in an advanced society.
Sure, yeah.
In the year 2023.
It's my own little bubble back then. It was like a time capsule. Anyway, so you have like, okay, let's say 300 years ago. You have the same concept where you had to have the community because everybody has different talents and abilities.
Well, even child rearing. There were times, and this is going to get like a little anatomical, but like there's a week per month that ladies need a little more attention. And in certain tribal villages, that woman would quite literally rest, eat, take care of herself, and the rest of the community would take care of her family for her. And they would all do that for each other.
And there's a reason why people live in communities. There's a reason the Amish live in a community. The Jewish population lives in a community. And it's just very different in the American world that it's very individualistic. But I think we can't lose sight of the importance of community and why we need it. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, you want your helping circle with a mentor, a pastor, a close family friend that's in a different generation. So that's your like other generation circle. Maybe some people underneath that you're leading and guiding if you're in a healthy place to do that. And then your own close circle is your friends, your closest friends, your next closest friends, maybe a group of people, and then your acquaintances. And being okay with knowing that you yourself are in those different circles for everybody else. So I may not be in your closest friend circle today, but maybe tomorrow that kind of flips depending on what you need or something. And then maybe in 5 years from now, I am, because we've been so close, or maybe in 5 years from now, I'm not, because our lives have separated and kind of gone different directions. And either way, being okay with that. And it's okay to know that it's not that people don't like you and it's not that people love you so much, to be like over wanted is also very difficult. So, I think it's just finding that balance, and it's okay to have that. It's also okay to struggle with that and understanding and accepting that for certain people. I will never be the closest friend to name a celebrity here. Put them there. Like, I'm just not going to be. Maybe you have this idolization for Taylor Swift and you want to be her closest friend. Like,
unpopular opinion, I don't get her.
I don't either, and I don't like her. Sorry.
I like some of her music.
Maybe some people just clicked off right there. But
Hi.
I don't like that's unrealistic to say like, I'm going to be her closest friend. I'm going to meet her. I'm going to get to know her. I'm going to be your best friend. That's unrealistic. And I think it's also very realistic to think that like maybe your neighbor who lives right next door becomes a good friend of yours because you live right next to each other or something. So there are changes. It can be overwhelming. And I absolutely understand that it can be frustrating sometimes, and building communities and working on this. And people are people, so people will hurt you and people will encourage you, and people will be there and people will not be there. And it's going to go back and forth all over the place. But to have that kind of overall goal of I want a community with more than one person, with less than 20 people, essentially, and build that and work on those relationships with those people.
And in order to have that as a preventative measure to everything, think about brushing your teeth every day, right? You brush your teeth, you don't even think about it. It's a lot harder to put yourself out there in the world, and it will only happen if you take a step and say hi to that neighbor, or have a conversation, or invite someone out for coffee, or respond yes to something that might feel not unsafe, but just a little bit like, oh, should I? Makes you nervous, right? Saying yes to an event where you might not know anybody. Being able to feel a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit vulnerable will do so much, not only for your self-confidence, but just to expose you to a bunch of different people who you wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yeah. Don't always say yes to the things that are just like you. Saying yes to something that's a little bit different, or maybe a little uncomfortable, or maybe venturing out to a volunteer place that's different. Maybe you'll meet your best friend when you volunteer at a place that you didn't really even want to go to. Like, you just really don't know. And I would say I use the term best friend loosely because I think you can have multiple. But I know you can have multiple, I should say. So, so it's just very different, but that's kind of my thought. So have your circles, have your solid person. Communities do change and shift, and to be aware that happens and that can be for you, and that can be for somebody else. If you move, but maybe if someone else moves, their community is shifting and changing as their life is shifting and changing. If I move, my community is shifting and changing too. It's just natural. It's just the way that it is. And just knowing that they ebb and flow. Having those helper people that are there stable in your life to know. Anything else?
Well, just if you're in a season where you are feeling like you are hungry for more community and just don't know where to start, it's really hard. It can be really, really scary to put yourself out there. Let us know, because you and I have both moved states away and come back and had all sorts of random stuff happen. And I think that we're both constantly working on our community in a very, I'm not going to say aggressive, but in a more assertive way. Sure. Working on building relationships. And that can be really scary, especially for people who don't even want to pick up the phone and make a doctor's appointment. Yeah. Right. That can be really intimidating. So we're here to help. And if you message us, email us, ask us any questions, and we can hopefully give you some tips on how to feel less terrified of the world around you and how to start to find those meaningful relationships that might just save your life one day.
Yep, exactly. Sounds great. See you next week.
Bye.